G'day, my name is Caleb Hatch and this is my observation report for EDST1500. So for this, I visited two Sydney public schools. The first one was Dulwich Hill Public School in the inner west, around 363 kids, really culturally mixed, 43% of them from a non-English speaking background. There was big Indigenous culture and there was a big multicultural community there. Then my second school was Linfield Learning Village on the North Shore. They're in the 97th percentile of the ICEA index, open plan, K-12, stage on age, very different school. I'll walk you through what I saw and tie it back to Bandura, Vygotsky, Brofenbrenner and the VARK theories. So methodology. At Dulwich Hill, I sat in on an English lesson and a PE lesson. The English teacher was pretty much up the front the whole time, delivering content, classic behaviour style. But what I actually noticed was that she was quietly giving different students different tasks at the same time. She knew exactly where each kids were at, setting different differentiated tasks. Then for PE, they were using physical activity to pull the kids who were totally checked out during the English lesson back into the learning environment and their learning brain. The ones who just can't sit still, which makes complete sense through a VARK lens. Pritish Kumar and Michael 2014 found that students possess a wide variety in learning preferences and that teachers need to move away from the one-sized lecture approach towards something more interactive and multimodal. So yeah, over at Linfield, there was an open plan, about 40 kids spread across different zones. A few teachers just moving around the entire time, the whole classroom. And the smartboard had this fully visual schedule up, every activity, every time block just laid out for the whole day. And that was a really deliberate way of managing their cognitive load. Tennyson and Volk 2015 explained that short-term working memory is limited in storage capacity and time. So basically, by putting up this structure on the board, the school is doing that mental heavy lifting for the students. Less overhead and more actual learning. The whole vibe was pretty relaxed too. The kids used this teachers' first names, a lot of little shout-outs for being on the task. So teachers would give appraisal towards students who were actually on task, switching on the other students. You could see both the humanist and the behaviourist ideas kind of playing out at the same time. So for my findings, the biggest thing that I noticed across both schools was just how much the peer group drove everything. If the people around you were locked in, you were locked into the task. If they weren't locked in, you weren't locked in. Didn't matter which school. What struck me was how consistent that was across these completely different school cultures. Bandura's theory in 2012 social learning theory basically explains that behaviour is shaped by watching the people around you, and in both classrooms, that social pull was honestly the strongest force in the entire room. Both of the schools used public reinforcement to work with that, and it landed really well in both contexts. At Dulwich Hill, the cultural mix was honestly amazing to see as an outsider, but for the actual students, it was completely normal. Nobody even batted an eye towards the complete multiculturalism around their environment. Brofenbrenner's ecological systems theory actually explained this. Darling 2007 describes how we shape and respond to our immediate environment. So if your world has always looked like that, the diversity, it just becomes the default. Nilholm 2021 frames real inclusion as, quote, all pupils participating socially and learning according to their prerequisites, end quote. And at Dulwich Hill, that felt like it was happening naturally, happening quietly. It was just the default. And at Linfield, the space itself was kind of doing the teaching. UNET AL 2022 describes adaptive teaching, where students flexibly modify instructions in response to the diversity of students. But at Linfield, that wasn't just something individual teachers were doing, it was actually implemented into the entire setup. And that's actually a pretty significant thing. It means that the learning environment doesn't actually depend on whoever's having a good day or not. It's actually the learning environment itself. One moment that really stuck with me, there was this one kid at Linfield who was being quite disruptive. He got moved away and from his mates, and his teachers just completely stopped engaging with him. He was constantly trying to get their attention and trying to get his peers' attention, but when he was removed and when he was ignored by everyone, pretty quickly he just ran out of steam and went quiet. And that's Bandura's 2012 self-efficacy idea right there. Once the behaviour stops getting any kind of reaction and reinforcement, the motivation behind it just fades away. A discussion. So looking at both these schools together, Dulwich Hill had really genuine warmth and strong relationships between teachers and students. Linfield had something a bit more built in, good teaching was a part of the structure itself, not just riding on individual teacher effort. Pardon me. At Dulwich Hill, the behaviour stuff was mostly reactive, so dealing with things after they kicked off rather than designing them out. And I think there's a real opportunity for more intentional, differentiated instructions, so a more proactive, preventative approach, especially given how many students come from non-English speaking backgrounds and who need content pitched to them actually as they are. Silahali 2019 notes that Vygotsky argued learning awakens internal development processes only when the child is interacting with the people and their environment. So if you're just delivering the same things to everyone, a one size fits all, you're going to lose a lot of those kids. You're going to leave them behind. UNET AL 2022 actually makes the point that real DI isn't just about varying tasks. It needs genuine growth mindset from the teacher. This actual belief that every student can get there. And honestly, from what I saw, the Dulwich Hill teacher already had that very strong connection to the students and that belief. That the care is there, it just needs a more deliberate framework around it. And at Linfield, the self-directed model worked really well for most of the kids, but then obviously there was that disruptive kid that kind of exposed their fault or weak points. When you design an environment around self-regulation, you're kind of assuming that the students already have that ability to self-regulate efficiently, and some of them just don't yet. So I'd say clearer behavioural scaffolding within that model would go a very long way and would actually benefit. It would make sure it works for every student and not just the ones who are already going fine with it. As Bandura 2012 puts it, the stronger the belief people have in their capabilities, the higher the goals they set. And I think that's through the through line for both schools: build success across different modalities, and that self-belief compounds. So to quickly wrap it up, what I took from these visits is that a genuinely good learning environment isn't about the resources or the reputation, it's the intentionality behind the teaching. Both schools had real strengths and both had room to grow. But grounding that practice in theory, Vygotsky scaffolding, Bandura's reinforcement, Prof and Brenner's systems, that's what actually moves teaching from just managing a classroom to actually building something that's genuinely inclusive and acceptable for all. Thank you.